Beautiful. I think I've heard that before.
This is a beautiful guitar.
It is. That was a beautiful melody.
Thank you. So welcome to the Local Pickup. I'm Jason Broadwater.
I'm Chris Gervais.
So this guitar was made by a company called Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and they are located in Minnesota. No, I'm just kidding.
They are in Santa Cruz, California.
They are in Santa Cruz, California. They're called Santa Cruz Guitar Company.
And I've only met one group of guitar makers in my life, but they're the best group of guitar makers that have ever lived, according to me. Because they're awesome and I love them.
They are awesome and we do love them. So we went out and spent 2 days with Richard Hoover, who's a legendary luthier guitar maker, and his whole business, his staff, his crew. Carolyn was awesome. Everybody out there was awesome. We went through a whole process of designing a guitar. It was a custom OM, just gorgeous guitar. And we documented that experience and made a documentary about Santa Cruz's custom guitar making process and stuff like. So we did that whole thing. They built that guitar. It was gorgeous. We got it. It's just over the top, amazing. Huge fans of their work, of Richard's, his whole philosophy on guitar making, it comes from the violin kind of world. The idea that you craft each instrument based on tuning it to itself, carving the insides, the braces, to make each piece of wood in harmony with itself, versus having specifications. Like Stradivarius violins, everyone they open or look at, I guess they don't open them.
They don't open them on YouTube.
We pop the top off of that Stradivarius. Take a look on the inside. Yeah. But everyone that they examine is different. But the point is that they weren't built to specifications. They were built to themselves. They were tuned and honed to their own selves. So they brought that philosophy into guitar making. They make about 400 guitars a year. That's it. And they got a whole staff and crew. It's just absolute top of technology, top of craftsmanship, top of like everything. And we couldn't be more impressed.
I know, and I feel like we can't talk about this guitar without talking about that.
I know.
Because the mastery, Richard and that crew, it's when I pick up a Santa Cruz guitar, I think and feel that mastery is there. It's craftsmanship, it's knowledge, it's philosophical. There's the Richard and that crew out there. There's an energy to those people that I think comes out.
Oh, I agree.
Their
yeah, their philosophy on just life in general, just good folks, man.
Granted, biased because I've been there and experienced it, but I think that I'm here to tell you that's in those guitars.
Yeah, it really is, and I bet there are other companies out there that are that amazing. We just have.
I'm just kidding.
No, so that's it. We spent days with them, met them, and there's nobody that makes a better guitar than them. Different guitar makers, different companies. Nobody's better than Santa Cruz.
I think you said it's like they make about 400 guitars a year. I mean, how many companies like that wouldn't choose to just keep going and exploding and manufacturing guitars?
Absolutely.
I think they're in that sweet spot where they're just like, no, let's master these guitars.
Absolutely. So we started a project about the Great Depression, a documentary project, and we were. It's called Steel Strings: The Sound of the Great Depression, and we were looking at pre-war Martins, like 1930s Martin guitars and other guitars in that era, and we discovered that Santa Cruz made this guitar, which is they call it the 1929 O. So This is a small guitar that would be called a parlor guitar, small body guitar today. Really, more than small body, it would be called a parlor guitar today. And it's very small compared to what would be an OM, which would be larger, or a dreadnought that's big. And it's for a lot of time for finger picking. Though this guitar strums amazingly well, but it's really known for its kind of just beauty and finger picking and comfort and kind of sitting around and playing it, writing songs on it, that kind of thing. But anyway, Martin, in when the Great Depression hit, they stripped their guitars, their smaller guitars, of, and actually that was their only guitar, so they released a larger guitar later in the decade, but of adornments, and made them all out of mahogany and dropped the prices as low as they could. And they had black, just ebony buttons, and just, it was like lacking of all adornment. And so to get the price down as low as possible. And those guitars are iconic 1930s Great Depression guitars. They're like, as far as the history of the guitar, there's basically the steel string guitars of the 30s, and the next thing would be the Telecaster.
And then end.
And then Yngwie Malmsteen, and the end of the story. Yeah. Bill and Ted, footnote. But no, there's like, then it would be like the Telecaster coming out, and the solid body electric guitar in 1948 or 50 or whatever. But anyway, so Santa Cruz, as an homage to that era, to the importance of that era to the guitar, and that's when the guitar became the primary folk instrument of America. Before that, it was the banjo, because they were loud. And they put steel strings on. All of a sudden, the guitar's loud too. Before that, it's in the parlor, quiet.
Yeah, in the banjo, like a lot of instruments of that folk kind of ilk, they're really ultimately accompany instruments.
They are.
Not because the idea was like, well, the piano has all notes and you can play entire songs on them, and all other instruments will be accompaniment.
Right.
But yeah, the guitar was that came in.
And the guitar, we've talked about this before. I mean, the guitar's like the piano in the sense that the piano, you play the bass and you play the melody and you play. It's like the all-encompassing instrument. It's where people can usually write music on piano, because it's like it's everything.
Yeah.
The guitar is kind of that in a portable way. You can have the bass line with your thumb, and you can.
And even if you don't pick out the melody like that, like in a piano, it's the range of the guitar. It's just there for you to sing along with. The entire song is playing on the guitar, and you can sing along with it.
And the strumming.
And all that range is there.
It's like lays down
a
platform that you can sing over. Versus the banjos with the voice. It's like someone talking while you're trying to sing.
Exactly.
Here you are singing a melody, and somebody's going, "Hey man, did you know that you're like, dude,
it's the banjo.
Can you just be quiet for a second?"
Wonderful instrument. Wonderful instrument.
I don't mean to be down on the banjo.
But when it's one person playing an instrument, the banjo doesn't really suffice.
Right. Yeah. It's like, when I'm done singing, now you banjo, you do a little thing.
Do your banjo thing.
And then I'm going to come back in and you be quiet.
Yeah,
exactly. And
the mandolin, same thing. It's an accompaniment instrument.
Right. And the guitar can step forward as a solo instrument, but it can step back and be a bass kind of.
Not a lot of records out there that it's just a person and a mandolin. And I'm not saying you can't, you can do it, but it's by and large, there are many records that are a person and an acoustic guitar.
That's true. A man and his Lynn. Amando.
Amando his Lynn.
No, Lorian.
Lowering the mandolin, the mandocello.
Right, so we're on the same page.
We might edit that out.
Yeah, right. So, Santa Cruz made an homage to these old guitars. It's all mahogany, but it's in Santa Cruz fashion, and it's, like they use the purfling that they use. That's usually a different, it's like a binding. It'd be a color or it's something that would give it aesthetic enhancement. But it also has sound implications in the way that it curves the sound off at the edges, right, and it projects it forward.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. We learned all that when we were out.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want to not use purfling because it would have a negative impact on the sound of the guitar, but they wanted it to look like the old mahogany guitars. So they they stained and dyed all their purfling to look like mahogany.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so now you can't even tell it's on there, but
Right.
it still has the high-tech
This
sound.
compromise between design and function.
Yeah, and not even compromise, because compromise sounds like a negative, like you're giving up on both sides.
Solution.
Yeah, it's like a, or even
Stop screaming.
monocle.
Pork belly.
Duo monocle.
Polyphonic.
So you get just a wonderfully sounding instrument. And I want to show you this. Hold
There's
on.
a computer back there.
Don't move.
It's a Macintosh.
Okay, computer.
Check this out.
So I'm going to lightly use this pick and be sensitive here, but I mean, dude.
Yeah. It's
It
got
sounds
presence.
so good, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are expensive, and this is like the lowest end of a Santa Cruz guitar, and these are like $5,000 plus. You know?
But that's the thing. It's like we were saying earlier about the choice between being someone who just, okay, it's not a Big Mac, you know? I mean, like
Right,
the way,
yeah.
and I don't, it's not to disparage whatever Fender
Big
and
Macs,
Gibson or whatever, or Big Mac. I love Big Macs, but like it's not a Big Mac. It is the difference between and like I said, I mean, there's so many amazing, beautiful, wonderful, expensive Fender and Gibsons and whatever. It's the difference between a print of a painting and a painting.
And a painting, yeah.
I mean, it's like
I mean, it's
every
a good
Santa
point.
Cruz guitar I've ever picked up, it has that. If you've ever known someone who's a great painter or whatever, and it's like the uniqueness between works and stuff. I think that's what's happening with
That's
Santa
an
Cruz
interesting
guitars.
way to say it. Yeah, I mean, it really, and the fact that this particular guitar is an homage to the plainest, simplest guitars of the people who were, you know, hard hit by the worst time economically in our nation. They make it look like those guitars. If you know anything about those guitars, it looks just like those guitars. Yet it is still a $1,000, I mean, like many thousands of dollars guitar. I mean, like it feels like the nicest guitar you could buy.
There's no denying it when you're sitting here playing it, picking up. It makes sense. There's no denying what you're looking at. Like I said, it's very much like looking at like a painting.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Very, very cool. Oh, and so the headstock.
That's my favorite part of this guitar.
Yeah, so this is like a debonair, dashing gentleman.
Okay, so this is the Santa Cruz thing. There's that. You've seen that Gibson kind of curve in the middle there. Well, this is like this cool design thing. We move it to the side, and it's the Santa Cruz thing that like that's there on this guitar, and like we don't have to do that a million times. Like any other, I think any other guitar maker finds that really cool thing and unlocks it, they make a billion of those.
Yeah.
Because that's a really cool idea.
It's super cool, yeah.
Maybe not. It's whatever. You
And
know?
so this logo, they have another logo that looks like, it's like SCGC, and it's got a curve, like the G comes down, and it looks kind of almost 70s-ish. Because they were formed in 76,
Right.
the company was. But this, so remember Richard, like, what did
it was
base
based on
on?
the ice cream shop that in the town where he grew up.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, which is cool because it's their more modern logo, but it's a throwback to his childhood.
Yeah, which, you know, evokes a guitar that they're imitating a guitar that was built in 1930, you know. You know, we love those old Depression guitars, but, you know, you get an old guitar like that and it's an old guitar, you know. I mean, it's gonna play like an old guitar. It feels like an old guitar, and those are great. You get the right one, work on it, and all that stuff. But if you want like a sophisticated instrument that sounds like the top of what it could possibly sound like, as far as quality of a guitar, I mean, you know, you can't do any better than Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and because it's not just about like artistry and sort of ideas and design. I mean, it's an expertise in sound.
It really
how
is.
to make how to make that sound of that old Martin, and just the practical choices alongside the sort of design and visual
absolutely choices. And it does sound different. Like we had an old Martin, actually we have, and it just sold this morning, so we're going to be shipping it off, 1930s Martin 217, and it, finger picking wise, they were similar tone wise because of body shape and mahogany. But strumming, you couldn't really strum that old Martin.
Yeah, it wasn't made for that.
It kind of wasn't. It felt too terse or something to just try to strum.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to be playing Jimmy Buffett songs.
No, yeah, you needed to pick it. But this, like, you can switch back and forth.
Yeah, it does both. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, clarity.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Like
I love
you can hear it's sort of one of those things where you can hear the clarity of the strings. Like, it's like each string is kind of singing.
Absolutely.
Very clearly.
Well, very cool. So this is a Santa Cruz 1929 model, 1929 model, they call it. It's a replica of the 1929 Martin, I think 017, or I don't think they nail it down exactly what it's a replica of, but that era, that kind of guitar. And I think it's pretty much a Martin 017, but and it's just made at the level they make guitars. And they're able to keep it at the absolute bottom of their price range, which still, again, is north of $5,000. But it's, I mean, but a lot of their stuff is like $18,000-$19,000. It's just insane.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you buy a Santa Cruz guitar, it's this like much like a painting. It's a work of art.
Absolutely,
you're getting
absolutely.
It has a lot of narrative attached to it. That's just whatever.
Yeah.
Expertise and mastery.
Well, very cool. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll see you next time on The Local Pickup. Finger guns. You heard it here first.